Hello, it is Monday the 26th of August. It's a holiday in the UK. It's apparently the last holiday before Christmas. How depressing is that? For most people though, in the Northern Hemisphere, it's kind of the last week where in North America people will be at the beach taking a bit of a week off ahead of the Labor Day holiday next weekend. And so sometimes that means that we're not kind of going to see some follow through moves, and it makes me a little bit nervous because seasonally in Bitcoin, September isn't the best month for, but there is quite a lot going on in the world that could move the market. The most depressing thing for me, I think, has been the arrest of the Telegram founder. I am a huge fan of Telegram. When I first started on Twitter, which is way back 2010, Twitter was my go-to place for the news. The algos worked really well. You could literally log in and see what was hot and what was moving and what people were talking about. And I don't know what's happened over recent years to the algorithm, but it's very hard to see breaking news and really what everyone is talking about. And for me, Telegram really fills that. So it's not so much about censorship, it's really about what's useful. And I can choose the channels that I want to look at, to do with cryptocurrency and to do with news around the world, So I will be very disappointed if something happens to it. But I think we should also point out that Pavel Durov is one of the top 100 holders of Bitcoin. He literally holds hundreds of millions of Bitcoin, and I would not want to see, clearly they've been after his phone for some time and access to stuff. I would not want to see them have access to his Bitcoin and seize it or sell it the way the German government have just done. That would be criminal. But I really hope this gets sorted out very quickly. There is nothing more important than privacy and freedom of speech. This really is what so much of crypto started from and is based on. Okay, so I talked about seasonality for Bitcoin. If we look back, this is a very nice chart this morning. Thank you to Cointelegraph. There are two kind of marginal months in Bitcoin. June and August are marginal months, kind of modestly negative quite often. And there is one month that is on average bearish, and that is September. We can see the average decline in September is 4.78%, the median is 5.5%, and we can see that for the majority bar 3, which were pretty modest gain months, these are negative months for Bitcoin. One of them was one pre-election year in 2016 was positive, one pre-election year in 2020 was negative. So I don't think that the election is anything to do with what is going on. That's the bad news. The really good news is the two best months of the year, bar none, are October and November. In October, you can see we've only ever had two bad Octobers. The average returns were 22.9% and the median returns 27.7%. And in November, the average is 46% because we've had some really big ones. And I think actually that goes back to 2013. If we were to, even if though we were to drop that out of the calculations, take out 2013 and just look 2014 onwards, Bitcoin monthly returns in November are really, really good. So no reason to get disappointed if we see this seasonal pullback in September. I think it'll be a really good buying opportunity. Okay, let's move on to the charts. In fact, let's talk about the macro kind of thing that we are operating in, because there are quite a lot of good things going on in Bitcoin and crypto in general. So we've seen a really nice rally over the weekend. But big picture, what's going on? Brazil's, we've got much bigger inflows climbing up again in Bitcoin, and we are starting to move positive in Ethereum ETFs as well. BlackRock's Ether became the first one to cross $1 billion in net inflows. So even though total inflows to all of the ETFs remain negative, we are, I think, starting to potentially turn a corner. And Bitcoin ETFs saw a positive week last week. They reached 500 million in inflows after 2 weeks of negative. So that's a pretty good sign as well. In other ETFs, Brazil's second Solana spot ETF has been approved. That's pretty positive for Solana. And there are some really good things going on with around the world, really, for DeFi and NFTs even. One thing I think I'm excited about this week is AI. And the main reason is that pretty much if we take a look at tech stocks, they all bottomed in this really nasty sell-off on the 5th of August. And most of the major tech stocks bottomed on the 5th of August. And the biggest one of those, of course, the one that everybody looks at is, let's put regular candles on, is NVDA. And NVDA, which is always late with earnings, is reporting earnings on Wednesday. So we've seen some really nice bounces in AI-related coins. I'm going to go through them. But the NVIDIA is going to report on Wednesday after the close. And that's really the biggest story of the week in terms of what everybody is looking at and what's coming on the earnings calendar. So watch out for that. We have seen some really nice moves last week in the big kind of AI coins, Fetch, Nia, and I'm going to go through some of those as well. So let's start with the big boy Bitcoin and see where we are. Now, if I take everything off, clearly we've been in this really nice corrective consolidation channel ever since the beginning of March, and here we are in the middle. We had a really strong resistance level at the 50% level through the middle here, around 61,500, and that's kind of where we got stuck underneath. Now we have popped above this and we've got up to the next fib retrace level, the 61.8. I'm drawing that. Whenever you get a big choppy overlapping correction like this, I always put my fib retrace levels over the whole correction. So usually 3 waves, you do it over both swings. And we can see using these fib levels from this high to low, this 236 fib at 55,000, when we got above it, became support. This 38.2 was kind of a funky level in the middle. We found support from it, bounced higher, got underneath it, got above support again. This 50% level in the middle though was really strong. And now that we've got up to this 61.8 retrace level, this is where we have stalled. Sometimes 61.8 fib retraces can be a little bit messy. We haven't actually reversed yet. All we've done is a kind of weekend of sideways here in Bitcoin. But when you do that, usually the 50% pivot level in the middle will be where you find support. So it's all about whether we pull back today or whether we break higher and continue higher. Remember, Monday, mutual fund Mondays are usually quite bullish if we continue higher, and if we can close above 64,382 in spot, we should continue higher to this 786 fib level. However, Bitcoin, relative to these tech stocks that all bottomed on the 5th of August, has been underperforming. And I'm a little bit concerned, not just that this is a big deal fib level, but I'm a little bit concerned sometimes, let's take these fib levels off and this noise. When I look at correctives, so we could draw this as a little bit of a channel, and here we are in the middle, and I don't like diddling in the middle, but there are, I'm always looking at measuring swings. And one thing that concerns me, not just that this is a 61.8 level, And we are still kind of bunched up here in the middle with these things. But when I measure previous corrective bounces, and we know they're corrective because after we did them, we made a new low and we weren't going up again. When they're all equal, I kind of go, we're still in this pattern. So if I measure this first big corrective bounce that we did here from the beginning of May until the beginning of June, and I compare it to the bounce that we made from the beginning of July until the end of July, you can see that they're approximately equal, pretty much equal, couldn't close above that distance. And now when I look at this bounce as well, I see that also this whole bounce is equal. And these markets, they tend to keep repeating these patterns. So potentially, if we don't hold above this 200-day moving average, which we've now recovered, look, it was resistance when we're underneath it. When we got back above it, we kept going. Here, it was resistance when we were underneath it. Now we've got above it. We really need to see us keep going and not drop back underneath this. Otherwise, potentially, this is the whole bounce over. So this is what I'm watching for, around this 61.8. So how is the fibs going to help us here with what comes next? So if I measure from this high to this low, here we are at the 61.8. It's really important that we hold this 61.487. And the reason is because if we don't, we're in that golden ratio zone. The golden ratio zone is between the 61.8 and the 38.2 usually. Sometimes you will see it extend down to the 236 fib. So my first support, if we're going to keep trending higher and see another swing higher, I would like to see us hold this daily 200 moving average and close above 64,300. And next up on the upside is 68,500. And then that round 70,000 number. If we drop back underneath 61,487, basically 61,500, the level that gave us so much trouble for the last 2 weeks, if we drop underneath this, we are likely to see a bigger pullback, and we are likely to drop back again to 59,000 and potentially 55,000. I realize, that a lot of people that watch this, from the way they message me, 90% of the holders of Bitcoin are hodlers. They are not trading it, not going up and down, and only really kind of 10% of the people who are holders of Bitcoin are actually actively trading this. So for me, I'm actively trading this. This is still bullish. I would get out of the way and wait for a bigger pullback if it drops back underneath 61,487. If you think it's going to go higher from here, this is not a terrible place to buy some. And I'm going to say why. Because if we just do a shallow pullback here and break higher, you're wrong if we close back underneath this 200-day moving average. So that's not a terrible idea. You can see if we did this here, you get a really nice run when you get above and you hold above a 200 moving average. If we close underneath it, now, so I'm looking for a lower time buy signal if that happens. But if we don't, and here we are in a little bit of a sideways range, for me it looks like a very nice little three-wave pullback at the moment. Doesn't look too shabby at all. But if we were to break underneath this sideways range that we are in, double top, double bottom here, if we break down, I'm going to wait and look at, I would be looking at this 61,500 if you were looking for somewhere to buy and no bounce. And I would look for a buy signal there. But yeah, potentially we could just break out of this very nice corrective range that we have been in and continue higher. And again, next up 68,000 and then 70,000. If we take a look at ETH has also been underperforming, and I have to say this one is not quite so compelling. The reason is, let's talk about why. We have not closed above some of those bigger daily moving averages that you really want to see taken out. We're kind of sideways here at this weekly 50 moving average, which is really tough support and resistance normally. If we measure from the high as well, we are potentially above this 236 fib. And if we can close above it, our next upside is going to be 2.8 and then 3,000. But it's just tricky sometimes getting above this daily 50 moving average. Lower time frame. If I get down to the daily, it looks pretty good. It looks pretty well supported. But for me, you know, when I look at where, if I'm going to buy here, where is my next target? This big resistance, if we look left here in ETH, makes me kind of, as a trade, not so compelling. 2.835 could be pretty tough resistance for ETH. So do I listen, a high tide floats all the boats. And this is a very nice three-wave correction we've made, just like in Bitcoin. If we break out higher, look out for that 2,840 zone. If we get above that, I might buy a little bit more ETH, but at the moment, I'm just kind of going to wait and see because it's underperforming. So that's how I'm seeing ETH at the moment. Let's take a look at a few more. One of them is Ripple. So Ripple obviously had really good macro news in that it's fine from the SEC is minimal. It's fine is only 140 million, which is nothing. It's, you know, they're going to pay it in cash, nothing to worry about. Have we broken out yet in Ripple though? Not quite. We're still stuck under this very flat weekly moving average here. And this trend line, I've got this from the high, connected it here, and we have been stuck underneath this basically for 2 months almost. I'm looking to see if we can break out high here. And again, high tide floats all the boats. If everything goes up, I think Ripple will get a really nice breakout here. I like Ripple because, again, it's not got any resistance from these previous moving averages. It's holding above them all. If we look on the weekly, if we can clear this weekly 200 moving average, we've got some really nice clear sky. And my first target is based on a measured move from the low in 2022. So I measured from this low to this high, projected it from here. First target is going to be where we are 61.8 of this first swing. So this move is 61.8 of this swing, and that's at 0.79. And the second target is round number 1. So do we have some bullish price action to kind of get excited about here? Maybe over the weekend. But, you know, this is one of the ones that until it actually breaks out, it's not broken out. And we have not broken out yet. But that, if we do break out, we haven't broken down or rolled over. We haven't got a sell signal. We are just stuck here at the moment, seeing which way next. If we do break out, though, that 0.79 and that round number 1 are going to be where we go. And yeah, that's what I'm looking for in Ripple. So let's talk about, so remember, Wednesday night, we've seen a really good bounce in AI stocks. But for me, most of them have got stuck at some really tough levels. Let's talk about them. In AI, let's so remember, Wednesday night is going to be the big decider. So let's talk about the biggest of the AI coins, which of course is NIA. Now, when I look at this, I think that this is a really nice bullish pattern. I think we've got 5 waves here from this low, and this is a very nice 3-wave pullback. A very nice 3-wave equal measured move, right? By that, I mean, I'm going to measure from this high to this low. We've got a very nice 3-wave correction here, rally, and this was the equal measured move level. Normally, this would confirm a reversal for me if we get back above this 61.8 level. That's at 5.59. But I also like fib levels, as you know. So why are we paused here, apart from the weekly 20 moving average? If I go from this high to this low, no reason, but these moving averages. So if we were to see a pullback here, again, this is another one where this weekly 200 moving average kind of needs to be support. We can, on a weekly close, we could look underneath it and retest this 236 fib level at 4.4. But again, I think this one has room for more upside. It's just that this resistance zone, we're not really going up until we've regained these levels. So and they come in between 5.3 and 5.3 and 5.59 in near. They're going to be quite important resistance. That's also where the daily 200 moving average is hanging out. If we get above here, we're going to go to the top of this channel. We just need to watch out that we don't see too big of a pullback. One of my rules about a daily 50 moving average is when you get above it, you kind of don't want to fall back above it, below it, if you're going to see a move. So for example, here in December 2023, when we made a very nice correction in near, we broke above the daily 50 moving average, and then it became support, and we never saw it again until it was over. So this kind of applies here. I feel like we're kind of at the equivalent of here. We really need to hold above this daily 50, or we're going to see a bigger pullback to this 236 at 4.4. So if you're long, you kind of want to hold out for that. And if we get shaken out with NVDA earnings, 4.47 is where I would look for this to find support in near. Now, not all of these stocks look quite as good. For example, let's take a look at Fetch. Fetch on the weekly has the weekly 20 moving average here, but also, again, this is another one. Are we going to break out of this downward correction? We're a little bit sideways in Fetch at this 236 fib level. We haven't quite broken above it and confirmed going higher. If I look at it on lower time frames, it does look like we're trying to break out. The problem is it's a big weekly moving average and it's a big weekly level. So it's one of those ones, if we're really going to break out, we need to hold above it. If we can hold above 1.35, 1.75 and 2.08 are next. So I'm looking at this one on lower time frames. Just be aware that this is one of the ones that we could get shaken out with NVIDIA earnings on Wednesday after the US close. BitSensor is one of my favorite ones. When I look at this in terms of fib patterns, I kind of like this swing failure double bottom pattern here. I like this pullback to this previous swing low. I like this 786 fib level that we're bouncing from. I think that we should continue higher to 4.91. Even if I put my fib retrace levels on the other way, from this high to this low, we're above that 236 fib. I think BitSensor, therefore, should see shallow pullbacks and continue higher. We've just got this bit of a tricky support and resistance level that we've kind of been a little choppy sideways at. And they're always a little bit, in fact, it looks better on the weekly there, we can see it. These, if we go left, there is kind of a tough level through here. So I do like BitSensor for more upside, but we may have a little bit of a shakeout here before we get to our next target in the 480s. So bullish for me, but I think shallow pullbacks, I'd like to see another swing higher, and once we get above this level, I would like to see it hold a support and continue higher, and that level that we're looking at is around 350, 355 for more upside in Tau, looking pretty good. I think it's got room to do it. Render is another one that I kind of am a bit of a fan of. Let's take a look at, see what's going on with Render. Now, again, if I do fib retrace levels from this whole swing, we are holding above this 236 fib level, which should become support, 5.7. We have closed above and are holding above the weekly 50 moving average. I think we're setting up for more upside. This is another one because we have made a big three-wave equal measured move like a lot of these AI tokens have, that we are confirmed in a bottom if we can get above this 61.8 level back test. So I've measured from this high to low from here. This 61.8 is at 7.37, and that's also this swing high and this swing low. So there's a lot to add up here for this being really kind of quite crucial, and where I'm looking for this to continue to. And we could end up, you know, if we see a September pullback in some of these, we could end up doing a bigger kind of bottoming pattern, like a big head and shoulders pattern here or something like that. So if you buy the dips, buy pullbacks, don't buy breakouts, that looks good. So short term, we shouldn't pull back too far if we're going to keep going higher here. And I think we're looking pretty good. And we would be looking for a fifth wave. If we look back to the low that we made at the 5th of August, this is a wave 1, 2, we made a big wave 3. I'd like to see a quite shallow wave 4 here. Some red, like my best entries come from a 4-hour chart. Some red Heikenashi's, a nice 3-wave pullback and a turn higher. And again, we're going to look for that 61.8 level back test, 7.37 as the first target. And if we can get above that, I think that this whole correction that we started in March is over, and we are online for our really good October and November, hopefully in render. So quite a lot of these are looking pretty impressive. Let's take a look at a couple more markets. So everybody, of course, loves memes. Let's take a look at some of these, because these memes have hit a big level. So unlike the AI tokens that we just looked at, if we look at where we are big picture, so this is DOGE, right? DOGE could get a boost from Elon, especially with everything that's going on in politics. Now, if we take a look at weekly fib levels, I think we're bouncing from a 786 fib level here. Here's our low. And that means, right, so I've gone from this low to this high. That means to be going higher, we need to get above this 61.8 level on a back test, and that's at 0.122. That's also where these swing lows are. That's also where the weekly 200 moving averages. There's a ton of resistance here. But before we can even get there, we've got to get back above this weekly 50 moving average, which is really strong support and resistance for Doge, and we haven't done it. If we can, then clearly we're on our way to 1630 and 0.18, so 0.163, 0.188. So still in a downtrend whilst we're stuck under these really important moving averages. We can see big picture in Doge that we got rejected first time back to the big 236 fib from all-time highs to lows. So for me, that's going to be the first target when we break out from this correct consolidation or on our way higher again. A retest of 0.21, and then above there we can, yeah, happy days, we're on much higher. So at the moment, not quite such a compelling buy as the AI stuff, which seems to be closing above some resistance. However, you know, this is crypto, and again, a high tide floats all the boats, and even the dodgy ones. So I wouldn't be surprised if this does continue higher, and if it does, then this important support and resistance level at 0.12 is where Doge continues. So a lot of these, let's take a look, let's find Floki, or can't find where everything is. You know, that's what I'm looking for. In Floki, we've seen exactly the same pattern, that big 236 fib level. It's under important resistance, so I don't see the meme coins quite as well set this week as the AI, but of course that could all change after NVDA. Now let's take a look at TON, which of course is the Telegram coin. If we look at this on the weekly, then you can see that we are, this really nasty move last week puts us underneath. Remember, these weekly candles close on Sunday night, so this priced in the move after the arrest. And normally when I look at a chart like this, so from the low that we made in July 2023, this is a really nice 5 waves up. This is a bullish looking chart. You'd be looking for a big 3-wave correction, potentially back to these 3 swing lows. Or because this is a first wave, wave 1, quite often you'll come back 50 or 61.8, and we could, now that we're underneath this weekly moving average, come back to this weekly 50. If I measure from the lows in TON, this means that this 50% that we almost bounced from at the beginning of August, on the 5th of August, is at 4.7. And this 236 fib is where we couldn't, sorry, this 38.2 is where we couldn't close below. These fib levels, the retrace levels from July, are working really well in this coin at the moment. We had a really nice bounce, 886 all the way from the 236 the first time. We had a really good bounce from this 38.2. I would expect the same again, and I would expect support somewhere between 4.7 and somewhere between 4.3, but this is all going to happen on news, and so not quite sure that this is finished, this correction, yet. This was a really bearish reversal. We are holding underneath last week's close, Sunday night's close. And if we take a look at this on the daily, for the first time, we are underneath the daily 200 moving average. We've tested this moving average before, but we didn't close underneath it. We didn't close underneath it on Saturday when the news broke. We didn't close underneath it on Sunday when the news broke. We might not close underneath it today. We could find buyers again from this support level of 5.5. But underneath 5.5, we are likely to see another swing lower to 4.7. And it's also possible that we see another, complete swing lower down to the 61.8, maybe at 3.6. So this is a potential support zone for me, but not quite the price action that if I was going to buy more of this, that I would want to see yet. I think that there is quite a risk that we go back and retest this 50% level in this one. Okay, I've got a couple of request charts. Let's take a look at those. One of them is HNT. And if you're a subscriber, I'm happy always for you. Send me a chart request, happy to do it. This is another one. Let's zoom out here on the weekly. From the high that we made in 2022 to the lows that we made last year in June 2023, this made a very nice bottoming down here at these lows at 1.15 and a lovely, fantastic bounce to the 236 fib 10 times. We got up to 10.5. Now, this looks like a three-wave correction and we're going to go higher, but this is one of those situations where we kind of need to make a base and have a real clear kind of bottoming pattern. I would say when I look at this now, if I go down to lower time frames here on the daily, I think that we did make a very nice bottoming pattern. Remember, when you're in a downtrend, you make lower lows and lower highs like this. And when you want to reflip that, you need to take out that previous swing high first. That says okay, and then you need to make a higher low, and that means you're going up again. That's kind of where we are here with HNT. We have gotten above this 200 moving average that was really previously support, resistance, resistance, and now we're coming back to test it. If we're going to keep going higher, this 200-day moving average is going to be support. Let's see if fib patterns help us here with any levels. We've reversed to the 61.8. This is a 50%. We could go a little bit lower of this 200, but 5.9 could also hold as really good support. So that's what I'm looking for in HNT. And then I'd be looking for a very nice fifth wave higher. And then I'm going to look for 9.3. And then I'm going to look for a retest of this 10 and this 10.5 resistance level. And continue higher. Okay, one more request. So looking for to see if this holds a support and continue higher. If we drop back underneath this 200-day moving average, I think unfortunately we could, because end up doing a much bigger pullback and a bigger pattern and potentially a bigger retest of the lows. But again, high tide floats all the boats. We should keep going higher. ONDO is another request. Now for me, when I look at ONDO big picture, this is a daily chart from the lows that we made in January to the highs that we made in June. I was looking for these kind of previous swing lows to be support, and kind of because I 50 or 61.8 of this first swing. Now, when you look at an ONDO chart, depending on which exchange you're on, not all of them have the same history. So when I'm not sure where the price started in this, for the first swing, I always go back to 0. So I'll put my fibs from 0 to this high, and I'll kind of look at where we are. And so if we go down to 0 with this, and so if you're looking at a chart on a different exchange, do that. You can see that we've bounced from the 61.8. This is a pretty good level, but we're kind of sideways and we're not back above these daily moving averages that we need to get above. And potentially, I'm not seeing any kind of strong 5-wave move yet. I'm not seeing any move out of this channel. So whilst I think this is a pretty good level, it's not quite a breakout that I want to see yet. A breakout above the daily 200 moving average, above these swing highs, but I think potentially this swing low could see us higher. But for me, not yet ready to go yet. And quite often, I would, especially, it looks like to me it's rolling over, and this has a little bit of a bear flag look. Potentially, you know, because this is a big wave one, we could do another whole swing lower down here. We could all the way come down to the 786 fib. So be a little bit careful with this one. No breakout yet. If you're wanting to buy some or watching this, let's see if we can break above 0.85, and then I would be looking at buying pullbacks to go higher. In a golden ratio zone between the 61.8 and 38 fib, we could go up to this 38.2 fib, and then this 0.745 kind of key level here. You can see it was really good support before. That should be support if we're going to keep going higher. So for me, I would really like to see that breakout and that pullback before I jump in. Okay, I hope that's useful.